Hello everyone and welcome. In this lecture we'll look at data visualization using Matplotlib. As you know, Matplotlib is a package used for data visualization. Here is the official link for Matplotlib. If you go to matplotlib.org, you can find out and read more about Matplotlib. We'll look at some examples, but you can explore more of the features here. This is the home page. If you look at examples, you'll see a list of various examples. And here, if you click on gallery, you'll see lots of figures that are drawn using Matplotlib. And if you click on any specific figure, you'll see the associated code. Okay, you can read more about any of the figures you are interested in. Okay, without further ado, let's start our discussion on Matplotlib. So the first thing we need to do is import our package, and let's also import NumPy and pandas. So import pandas as PD, import NumPy as NP, and let's also import Matplotlib. So we'll import Matplotlib's pyplot as PLT, and let's also use our Matplotlib inline magic function so that we can see our graphs on Jupyter Notebook. Matplotlib inline. Let's draw a simple graph using Matplotlib. What we'll do is we'll define our x and y values and then use those values to draw our graph. So for our x-axis values, I'll use NumPy's line space method to define some points to use. So np that we'll call the line space method, line space, and then let's see. We can use points from -6 to 6, and then let's use 200 points maybe. Okay, that's for our x-axis. And for our y-axis, let's draw a graph of cosine function. So we'll store it in a variable called cos for cosine, and NumPy has a cosine function, so we'll call NumPy's cosine function and then pass the x variable we defined earlier. So this will calculate the cosine value of each of these points defined here. Okay, so we'll use this as our x variable and this cosine as our y variable. So the next thing we need to do is this Matplotlib has a function known as plot, and that will help us display the graph. So plt that we'll call the plot function and then pass our x and y variables. So x, and our y value will be this cosine. Okay, now if we run it, we see a simple cosine graph, a graph consisting of our x values, x-axis, and y-axis. So here is a simple cosine graph. Now let's do the same thing and draw another graph, and for this graph we'll use the sine function. So I'll copy the values for x, and for our y I'll save it in a variable called sine, and we'll use NumPy's sine function to calculate the sine of each of these values in our line space method. And then we'll simply call Matplotlib's plot function and then pass our x-axis and our y value, which is sine in this case. So if we run this, we get a sine function. Okay, our x-axis and y-axis. So this is a simple sine function. Okay, and what I'll do next is display both of these cosine and sine functions in the same graph. How can we do that? So it's simple. Let me copy our value for the x-axis, and in the same set we'll define our y value, which is cosine and sine functions, so we'll define them separately. So we said np dot cosine of x. Let's also use the sine function np dot sine of x. Next, what we can do is call Matplotlib's plot function and pass x and cosine. That will be for our first figure, and for our second figure we'll pass x and sine of x. So if we pass or call the plot function within the same cell, both of the graphs will be displayed as one. So let me run it and show you. So now we have sine of x and cosine of x in the same graph, right? In the same figure. Okay, we know that the blue one is cosine of x and the green one is sine of x. So we haven't defined any colors to specify which function is what, but Matplotlib did that for us. Since those are two different graphs, it used blue for one and then green for the other, right? So what we'll see in the next lecture is how we can modify some of these characters, how we can specify a specific color to one of our plots and a different color for the other plot, how we can adjust our x and y values and so on. Great. Thank you everyone, and see you at the next lecture.